Hi, my name is Charlie. I'm a proud owner of a Toyota GT6, and if you know me as BRZ, welcome back to the channel. And here, I say that because I'm talking about the new Subaru BRZ for 2022. I've heard that it's been revealed globally, and also there's been on press releases as well as track days in America. However, it's not coming to the UK, but there is going to be a new Toyota GR86, which is going to replace the outgoing model, the GT86. So I just wanted to get my opinion on it, as I am a GT86 owner, because they're such similar cars and they've got a similar platform. So what I've immediately noticed is that the styling is quite a bit different. The front of the car looks kind of like the Alpine A110-esque, mixed with a bit of that new Nissan 400Z concept car. You could mistake it for a Nissan. Also, noticing that the bonnet was considerably lower. I don't know if that's just perception or the design language being used, but the side profile does look very good, and you notice there is like a little vent on the wheel arch, behind the wheel arch actually, and we don't know if that is functional or not yet. Subaru nor Toyota has released any information about that, but I suppose, considering the amount of money you would likely pay for it, I should hope that it does, to give extra aero and cooling to the brakes and the wheels, etc. So the one noticeable thing is, I don't know if it's a new type of designed engine for the outgoing FA20, but this is a 2.4 litre boxer, 4-cylinder, develops 228 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque. For context, my car has about 197 and 151 pounds-foot of torque, so that power increase of 30 horsepower or about thereabouts and about 33 pound-feet of torque. What I'm showing you now is a comparison between the GT86 on top and the 2022 Subaru BRZ in a sort of simulation in Forza Horizon 4. And as you can see, the Subaru BRZ is out-accelerating the GT86 quite a bit. Just thought I'd show you what that extra 30 ponies does to a car like this. In addition to that, we'll do a motorway acceleration test from 30 to 70 miles an hour and see which one prevails. So you can see initially they both keep up, and then the BRZ, with that extra grunt, is slowly pulling past. It is able to pull up to 70 a second quicker than the GT86. Last little test is about maximal lateral acceleration, showing that the BRZ, with its better tyres and uprated suspension for 2022, is slightly faster around this circular constant bend compared to the GT86. Even hits a peak of 80 miles an hour, as you can see, and the GT86 can barely go above 70 without having to slide. Hypothetical aside, let's actually hear it in real life.
Presenting the all-new 2022 Subaru BRZ. Sports car purity, Subaru DNA.
Absolutely what the car does need. However, I've heard that the curb weight has been upped slightly. Something like, people were saying 1,285 kilos, other sources saying 1,310 kilos, other stuff like that. But albeit, that is a good, decent power increase from a naturally aspirated unit. Obviously, if this is just a bored out version of the engine, you could expect a ton of tunability and power if aftermarket sources do want to turbocharge or supercharge it, give it a bit of forced injection power and stuff like that, because naturally aspirated can only go so far without forging the engine itself. So I also noticed that the rear, going back to the design language, it kind of almost looks like a mixture between Aston Martin with the lights, with the shape they are in, sort of like this weird type of crescent that comes up and slits at a 90-degree angle, and the boxiness at the back is quite a bit more boxy as well, mainly like kind of like a BMW sort of product. And the rear diffuser looks quite a bit smaller, though we don't know if that's functional or not. that's yet to see. And also the interior has been revised as well, but the design language in the interior is quite similar really. In terms of like the actual spec, it comes with a different type of infotainment which is used in all Subarus, model Subarus anyway, and the climate controls also have dual zone integration in them, so you can just turn one side up or down willy-nilly depending on your passenger and stuff like that, depending on how cold you are. And the big one is digital instrument cluster. Now that is a big change. I think that sort of disengages the driver in the sense, because if you're looking at a sports car that was inspired by the 60s and 70s sort of glory day sports car design, if you will, you're going to want to have analog gauges, because they actually age better in my opinion. I mean, my car, of course, it's got analog gauges, and I think they'll look good in 5-10 years time. The interior in it is quite barren really, in my model GT86. I mean, they're not really good looking interior cars, but they're functional and practical, which is what you need. This design interior, I noticed it had a lot more Alcantara. It had what looked like a lot more bolstering in the seats, and as well as the whole package itself, it looks like it has the same amount of like actual interior space and stuff like that. Speaking of space, when you open up the trunk or the boot, it has roughly the same as the outgoing models. Of course, the car also has other sorts of things in line, such as safety features and equipment such as like a rear parking sensor, other stuff with like phone connectivity, all up-to-date sort of things you'd expect. So you're not without creature comforts in here. So say if you put it into reverse, you can actually activate a parking camera and also have the parking sensors, so you're not worried about damaging your sports car, which is very nice. And I should suspect that they'll probably add in lane keep assist and stuff like that, and also automatic cruise control. That's quite a big standard for those in the US anyway. I believe you have to have cars manufactured with them as standard, otherwise they can't go into production there. But yeah, so like I said, it's quite a practical car, and it's quite lightweight, so it's gonna have really good fun factor and stuff like that. The standard option is a 6-speed manual transmission, or you can go with the 6-speed automatic transmission. However, you must note that the transmission is not a dual clutch, as far as I'm aware, and also that you get a sport and snow mode as well as a track mode in the manual, and I don't think you get the sport and snow mode option in the automatic. And as well as that, the manual benefits from having slightly shorter gear ratios as well. And more to the point actually, the automatic would probably cost more as well. But then again, a lot of US drivers, a high percentage of them, would actually prefer the automatic, because not a lot of them know how to drive stick, and that's factual anyway. But in the UK anyway, a lot more tighter curvy roads. I think we'd have fun with that sort of car, but we've got to wait till Toyota release the GR86. GT86s come standard with Prius rubber. They're not really got the best of traction. Now, I've not heard if the tyres are actually been widened or that, but the alloys look as though they're the ones that are used on the base model GR Yaris, which are surely to be slightly lighter weight than the outgoing model as well. But we know that the tyres fitted as standard as a Michelin Pilot Sport or 4s, which are considerably grippy tyres. That's something you need. Throttle response should be up to standard as well. They stiffened at the chassis, or giving it 50 to 60% torsional rigidity, which is nuts really, considering when you drive a GT86 you feel how stiff it is. There is literally no body roll unless you really really do give it some oomph in the steering. And apparently the suspension has been softened for regular driving use, and which is more helpful for commuting. It still stays stiff on the limit, if that makes sense. I think with the aid of the suspension, they've been able to put the engine lower down into the chassis, which gives it better cornering, better weight distribution, all that sort of stuff. There is quotes saying that it's got near perfect weight distribution, so we could assume that it has near 50-50 front and rear, but I think the current model has 54% front, 47% rear, so I have a feeling they've anchored that down slightly. I wouldn't expect it to be that much heavier in the front. I'd say the weight balance is probably something like 52-48 or something like that, because remember, you've got to get all four corners of the car almost perfectly in sync, which is extremely hard to do for any manufacturer because of placement of the fuel tank, weight of the tyres, fluids and stuff like that, placement of even like the driving position as well. That's like 4 factors, if not more, you've got to consider as well. It should be quite a good handling car. However, the only problem is what most people will find, and I've got no problem with, to be honest, the power. And now this has been a recurring theme. The power has not been sufficient. People have relished to have it turbocharged and supercharged with obviously more power. So with this having about 228 horsepower, it's still quite a bit, but not enough to satisfy those who have had high-performance sports cars, such as a 350 or 370Z, which cars have 300 horsepower. And those who have Porsches, they will know the grip and the focus on the actual cars, such as the Cayman and the 911. However, this is probably a different market. But the value for money is kind of lost when you can actually just tune a stock GT86, or even get something like a performance model like a TRD or the Subaru BRZ TS, so the tuned by STI. Give it slightly more power with just an ECU tune, and then you have roughly about the same power. I know that Litchfield, they quote 225 horsepower with a different exhaust and intake manifold and stuff like that. You completely remove the torque dip, which is between 2,000 and 5,000 RPM, I believe, and that dip is quite considerate in that when you feel the initial acceleration, you rev it, and so you're accelerating through, say you're in third gear and you're at like 30 miles an hour, you're in 2,500 RPM roughly, you really floor the throttle, feel nothing, and then your head gets pushed back around 4,500 RPM, then you can really feel it start to go. I reckon that Subaru and Toyota for this new 2022 model have engineered that out, and especially with the traction from the tyres, you probably won't be able to feel it. In terms of fuel economy, I would expect similar sort of figures, plus it's even better if they can do it in the WLTP fueling regulations now, because they're a lot more strict, and also emissions are a lot more strict, so that you might also need an aftermarket exhaust for this one to really hear the sound. It's quite an exciting prospect, considering that the government are in the UK anyways, are apparently going to ban the sale of electric cars in 2035. There's not much more time for petrol cars to be manufactured, so I think this is kind of why some manufacturers are starting to revive sports cars, because they'll never be seen again, and this is just one example of it. We know that this new BRZ is not coming in the UK, but the GR86 will definitely be the one to go for. Anyway, that's my opinion. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, share and subscribe, and I'll really appreciate that.